Hey guys, I hope you are all doing well. I am posting late as it totally slipped my mind that today was my day to post a video, so I apologize for that. But first off, I want to thank John Tolis for all of his time and effort and energy and posting his videos on the 2 days that are his turn. And so shout out to John. And if you haven't been watching his videos, I strongly encourage you to do so. So thank you, John. So last week I shared with you guys a book that I was reading, Don't Sing Songs to a Heavy Heart, and I shared some insight that I've received from reading that book. At the same time in reading that book, I've been reading through a biography of Paul. For quite some time, actually, as it's a pretty thick biography. But I'm around page 400 out of 450, so I'm almost done. It's been a honker. But today, I read about Paul's 2 years of custody before being sent to Rome. So Rome was Paul's last stop in life before he was killed for his faith. As Paul the Apostle, he was, as tradition tells, a martyr of the Christian faith. And so Paul, he was one of the biggest Christian influences, if not the biggest, in the years after Jesus ascended to heaven. So he was instrumental in spreading this message of the Messiah to the ends of the world after Jesus ascended into heaven after he was crucified and resurrected. And so Paul, he was a doer, man. He was a goer. He was constantly on the move and preaching and teaching and healing as well. And Paul was a man of many wonders. And so as I mentioned before, Paul was held under Roman custody for 2 full years. And this isn't talking about the other occasions where Paul was in prison. But on a separate occasion, Paul was held under Roman custody for 2 full years. Now, I imagine that these 2 years lasted a very, very long time for Paul. Paul was held in custody in the first place because of the Jews. The non-believing Jews, the Jews who did not believe that Jesus was the Messiah, because they thought Paul was a huge heretic, and they thought he was spreading lies, and they viewed him as a traitor, as Paul himself once persecuted the people and the Jews who believed that Jesus was the Messiah. So the Jews, they complained to the Roman government about Paul. They complained that he was creating a disturbance, which was huge for the Roman government, as they were big into peace. They wanted peace throughout their nation. And so they tattletaled on Paul. And so Paul, he had to wait 2 full years in Roman custody. And again, I imagine these 2 years lasted a very long time for Paul. Because at the same time, Paul felt led and Paul wanted to go preach in the city of Rome. Now, Rome was the capital city of the Roman Empire, the most powerful nation of its time. And Paul felt led by the Lord to go share the message of Jesus in the city of Rome. However, Paul was stuck in custody for 2 full years. And I imagine that it killed Paul to have to wait, because again, he wasn't one to just sit around and wait. He was a doer, he was a goer, he accomplished a whole lot for the Lord. But however, after 2 years, Paul did not lose his zeal for the Lord. So in that long 2-year stretch where Paul had to wait in Roman custody, he did not lose his zeal for the Lord. As after he was brought over to Rome, and not the best terms in the world, as he appealed to Caesar himself, so he was sent to Rome. But in all this, in that long waiting period, he did not lose his zeal for the Lord. And I imagine that it would have been so easy for him to lose his zeal, to lose his drive to serve the Lord in a time of waiting that lasted 2 full years. However, Paul stayed the course and he maintained his zeal for the Lord. Now, fortunately for us, we are not being held in custody like Paul was, but the circumstances that we are faced with can seem very similar to what Paul faced with, as we are in a state of waiting. As we're trying to be responsible, we're trying to be safe, we're trying to be healthy, and socially distancing ourselves from others, and that requires us to wait. We are playing the waiting game right now. A lot of times it's hurry and wait, and right now we are in the waiting phase, and I'm not exactly sure how long this is going to last. But if you're anything like me, you are itching to gather together again. You're itching to gather in person as the church and to preach the message and to teach and to talk with one another about God's word, and you want to do great things for the Lord. And the quarantine can somewhat restrict that ability. Again, similar to what Paul had to go through in his Roman custody, as he wanted to go and preach and teach, but he couldn't because he was in Roman custody. And again, the quarantine, similar to Paul's being held in custody, has very many similarities to that. And so I just want to take this time and I want to encourage you all to not lose your zeal for the Lord during this difficult, mundane stretch. As Paul, he waited 2 years and he did not lose his zeal and his passion and his drive to serve the Lord. And again, this is a lot easier said than done, as just about most things in this world. And it can be difficult to not lose that zeal, to not lose that drive for the Lord, as it is a time of waiting, and it can seem mundane day after day. We can lose track of the days. You can forget that it's your turn to post a video online, and so it can be difficult. But I just want to encourage you guys to look at the wonderful example of Paul and how he had to wait 2 years in custody, and through all of what he went through, he did not lose his zeal for the Lord. And so I'd encourage everyone to use this time to seek God first and foremost, because although the quarantine restricts us from gathering together, and it may restrict your ability to evangelize in the time being, it does not restrict your ability to seek God first and foremost. And I believe during that difficult 2-year stretch for Paul, he sought the Lord first and foremost. And we can do that too, and we need to be doing that, seeking God first and foremost on a daily basis and preparing ourselves to do great work for the Lord when all of this is over and we can gather together and we can share this message with all our friends and family. I thank you guys for listening, and again, I just encourage you to stay the course, maintain your drive, and maintain your zeal for the Lord. Thank you, and have a good one.